I'm sure you noticed the pink breast cancer awareness ribbon on my shirt. Well, I've recently decided to open up and share about that in the hopes that it'll help other people. Breast cancer is a big part of my story, but let me start at the beginning. I was born and raised in Orange County, California. As a kid, I loved mini bikes, go-karts, and as I got older, I started getting into classic cars, hot rods, and things like that. In my 20s, I started working for a plumbing company. While I was working at the plumbing company, I met a girl who came from a family of race car drivers, and maybe a year and a half later we were married. And around the same time I started my own plumbing company. We started building a family and we bought our first home in Lake Elsinore, California. I loved the buying process and knew instantly that I wanted to be a real estate agent and work in real estate. So I started taking classes to learn how to become a real estate agent. We lived in that house for 3 or 4 years, and then we relocated to the Lake Arrowhead area. We kept our house in Lake Elsinore and we became instant rental property investors. For several years we focused on the plumbing business and left the real estate license aspirations on the back burner. After some years as a buyer, seller, and real estate investor, I did get my real estate sales license. Then one night, about midnight, there was a knock at the door, and I remember thinking, who in the world is knocking at the door this late at night? I was kind of a little bit nervous, thinking, is it some type of home invasion thing, or maybe somebody knocking on the door to see if anyone was home and then they break in and steal stuff? So I went to open the door and I looked out the peephole to see who was there, and I could see 2 soldiers dressed sharp to the nines in the military dress blues. And my son Christopher was in the Air Force, and I knew that was not a good thing. I remember seeing stuff like that on TV. And I answered the door and they asked me if I was David Rupp, and I said yes. And then they informed me that my son Christopher had passed away. And I was devastated. I was just in shock. I couldn't process it. I kept thinking it was some sort of a bad joke. I remember the next time that I went to bed and I fell asleep, and I was just thinking, I know it sounds weird, but I was just thinking, for some reason, hopefully I'll wake up and I'll find out this was all just a dream. But I woke up and it was still real. It was a tough several years after that. Then out of the blue, my wife of almost 30 years, who had been healthy the entire 48 years of her life, found a lump on her chest. It was diagnosed stage 1 breast cancer. The good news was we caught it early. Bad news was it was the most aggressive form of breast cancer. She went through chemotherapy for a couple months and then followed up with radiation treatment. And a few months later, we got some good news. Cancer-free, all clear. Then a few months later, she found another lump, but this time up by her neck. The cancer had moved up to her lymph nodes at the base of her neck and then started spreading through her whole body. This time she was diagnosed stage 4. The cancer spread pretty quickly from there, and she went to heaven about 8 weeks after her 50th birthday. I was absolutely in shock. I was glad she was no longer in pain. She was no longer suffering. In the last few months before she passed away, she told me numerous times she just wanted to go be with Jesus. After a good bit of processing all this stuff, I decided that I wanted to use my story and my experiences, as negative and tragic as they were, in some way to try to help other people. So first off, all you ladies who have been procrastinating getting your annual breast exams, I want to encourage you. There's people in your life that love you. Get out there and get yourself tested. Early detection is one of the best ways to reduce the discomfort and the length of time that treatment can take, as well as it greatly improves the chance of survival. Also, to get you up to speed with the rest of the story, so for the last 7 years I've been a volunteer at City of Hope Cancer Research Hospital in Duarte, California. After things settled down, I sold the plumbing company and went full-time into real estate. I still love to buy, work on, and sell the old cars and hot rods, thus the name Dr. Hot Rod the Realtor. And I remarried and got 2 more great kids out of the deal, so it was real nice to get a couple more kids. I've also taken recently to gardening. I like to garden vegetables, flowers, and fruit trees. My favorite is the Honeycrisp apples. If sharing my story has helped you in some way, or if there's anything I can do for you, feel free to leave a comment below, reach out to me. My contact information's all below in the description. Also, if you see me at the grocery store or at a car show or somewhere out and about in town, don't be shy. Come up and say hi. I always love to meet and talk to new people.